Dr. Shoemaker and parents and guests, honored graduates, it is indeed a privilege to have been asked to share a few thoughts on this day of celebration, although let's be honest about it, State Senator Mason and Dr. Shoemaker have already shared most of my thoughts for the graduates. You have accomplished so much. You ought to be proud of this well-deserved honor today. You have earned it. Paul in 1 Thessalonians chapter 2 encouraged the believers to walk worthy. That's the theme of this year's summit, our yearbook here at the college, and was chosen by the student body as a theme. I would like to use that theme for some remarks this morning. How do you walk worthy, graduates? Some basic principles of David's life spring sharply into focus in a series of statements that he made in Psalms, each beginning with the phrase, "As for me." Living for God takes an investment in time and effort. A student asked the president of his college once if there was a means of earning the degree that wouldn't take quite as long as the one prescribed in his chosen program of study. A question I'm sure these graduates thought but didn't ask. The president said, "Oh yes, there is, but it depends on what you want to be. When God makes an oak, it takes 100 years. He can make a squash in 2 months." Living for God is a lifelong task and passion. How do you walk worthy? Let me give you 3 things very quickly. 1, you walk worthy when you walk on your knees. In Psalm 69, David said this, "But as for me, my prayer is unto thee, O Lord, in an acceptable time. O God, in the multitude of thy mercy, hear me." The first 5 verses of that chapter, David is seeking favor because of the problems in his life. And so many issues are mentioned in the first 5 verses. By the time you get to verse 13, he's past all that and he's seeking God for help. You will always have problems. The people that don't have problems are the people that aren't doing anything. There will always be difficulties. You will always have enemies. You will fail at something. In Romans 7, Paul says this, "I find then a law that when I would do good, evil is present with me." So the day that you find that you are less than you hoped you would be, the day when you can say honestly in your heart with great sorrow, "I have failed," well, my comment to you would be, congratulations. You have been exalted to the level of the Apostle Paul. Welcome to the human race. To not pray is to fail to acknowledge that we need God. We desperately need His wisdom, His fullness, His strength. Prayer will fill your emptiness with God's fullness. It will meet your poverty with His riches. It will acknowledge your littleness with His greatness. Prayer will replace weakness with God's strength. How will you walk worthy? In prayer. Never forsake prayer. Secondly, you walk worthy when we walk humbly. In Psalm 35, David is besieged by unjust persecution. Others are after David and to destroy him, and with no cause whatsoever. That chapter begins verse 1, they're striving and fighting against him. Verse 3, they're persecuting him. Verse 4, they're scheming, trying to find a means to hurt him. Verse 11, they are false witnesses against him. Verse 12, they are rewarding his good with evil. And that's just life. And you will face that no matter what you try to accomplish for God, no matter how good you try to live, no matter what difference in His name you try to make, you will find there will be enemies and problems in your life. And I want you to notice how David responded. In verse 13 of chapter 35, this is what David says, "But as for me, when they were sick, my clothing was sackcloth. I humbled my soul with fasting." This world is going to tell you, stand up for yourself and retaliate And your Savior says, die to yourself and humble your heart. He said, I humbled my soul. That phrase means to be exercised. Interesting thought. Humbled is used to imply that God sends people and circumstances into our life for training purposes. God's going to use those people and those circumstances in your life to change you. The same irritating person just kept popping up in my life. They were a different name and a different setting, but it was the same irritating person over and over again. Do you know what fixed that in my life? When God changed me. God doesn't send circumstances in your life to change the circumstances. He doesn't send people in your life to give you difficulties to change that person. He sends those things into your life to change you. Walk humbly before him. A humble man does not become bitter or seek revenge. A humble man learns and grows through the storms of life. Let me give you the third way you can walk worthy. You walk worthy when you walk in imitation of Christ. Psalm 41:12, and as for me, thou upholdest me in mine integrity and settest me before thy face forever. Upholdest me in my integrity is a phrase that simply means you help me in my innocence. You need to walk in imitation of Christ if you're going to walk worthy. He says, you set me before thy face forever. To stand before him face to face, completely focused on him, looking him right in the eye with the ambition of being as much like him as you can possibly be. Jesus said this in John 8, I am the light of the world. But I want you to notice in Matthew 5, he said to his disciples, ye are the light of the world. We're the light that allows men to see God. We either imitate Christ in our life or we promote darkness in this world. Psalm 17:15, David said this, as for me, I will be satisfied when I awake with thy likeness. You've earned a degree that you ought to be proud of and you can be proud of. And this chapter of your life is coming to a close. But the next chapter of your life won't come to a close until you wake in his likeness. Walk worthy. Do not forsake your prayer life. Realize you always need him. Stay humble in a world that exalts self-promotion. Strive to imitate your Savior so this world can catch a glimpse of the one who died for them. Congratulations to all of you. May God protect you, and may he use you for his glory. We love you, we thank God for you, and we will most assuredly miss you.
For the singing of I Sing the Mighty Power of God, will the audience please stand?